Welcome back to another episode of Curveballs and Lemonade with Judy Kogan. I'm really excited about today's episode because our guest today is Linda Fuchser, and she has the same rare brain disease as my son. She's here today to talk about her diagnosis, the genetic mutation that she has, and brain surgery, recovery from brain surgery, and her transition from patient to advocate for the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation. Let's dive right in. Welcome to Curveballs and Lemonade. Linda, thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. As I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today, I was reminiscing about the first time that we ever talked. Do you remember it?
Okay. I have that beautiful brain thing, so refresh my memory.
So obviously it was in the context of the Alliance to Cure Malibu walk, but it was almost 10 years ago. And I was sitting in this very room and we were discussing the walk and introducing ourselves. And, Eli was recovering from his first brain surgery and, it wasn't going well, but I was in a place where I felt like I wanted to, connect with other families and patients that were going through similar things. And so we were all introducing ourselves. And I remember listening to your story, which I want to hear more about today, and just thinking how incredible you are to be, you were in a good place, at that time, talking about, your diagnosis and having the common Hispanic mutation and everything. So I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but I remember the conversation and it stuck with me. And I remember, we talked about the logistics of the walk, but I remember hanging up the phone and thinking, wow, this person is incredible. And I can't wait to get to know her more. And over the years, we have gotten to know each other through lots of different activities. So let's talk about your diagnosis. So it's not a secret. You've got CCM1. And let's talk about we'll talk in a second about what it is, but let's go back, initially to, what caused you to seek out a diagnosis? Were there symptoms? What were you experiencing that led you to arrive at your diagnosis?
My finding was actually accidental. I was at a dinner party. It was October. It was 2 days before Halloween. And there was a big party going on for Halloween. And I was at this party and I got up from a chair the same time the person next to me did. And he had a little bit more to drink. And then I did. I don't think I was drinking that night. I remember I had like a horrendous migraine. And anyway, he was dancing with me. And as anybody would be with too much intoxication, he bent me backwards in order to kind of dip me. But his balance was, I just got knocked over back on my back, and my hands were, intertwined with his hands, and I couldn't break free. So I just fell on the back of my head. And the next day, this is 2004. So the next day, my youngest was quite young. She was still trick-or-treating. So I didn't want to ruin her Halloween by going to the emergency and finding out what is going on with my brain. And the next morning, I did. It was November 1st, 2004. And I sat there all day, all by myself, because I just thought they were going to tell me I had a concussion and it was bad and I would just go home. And they wouldn't let me go home. I went there like at 9:00 in the morning, and by 3, I'm still sitting there waiting for someone to tell me what's going on. Okay. So I was in the middle of a brain bleed. But it was like, is the brain bleed from this lesion or is the brain bleed from the fall? Right. So let's keep you at this point. I had not even told my family that I was going to go to the emergency, that I was feeling that bad. So I had kids to pick up from school. I had all this stuff, and I'm like, yikes, I guess I should call my family and tell them what's going on. So that was the beginning. And way back in 2004, honestly, trying to find anybody who
Yeah.
knew anything about cavernous malformation, there was so many, mix, like, what are the next steps?
Yeah.
And Google's around, but it's young, so I just Googled right away what my diagnosis was,
Yeah.
because I couldn't see a doctor fast enough,
Now, did they
even back.
know? Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's still a challenge.
Mhm.
Did they know right away from imaging that it was a cavernous malformation? And the reason why I ask is because I know for us and for a lot of people, it initially just shows up as a mass, and then further
Mhm.
testing sort of evolves, and that diagnosis arrives. How did it happen for you?
Yeah, it was a CAT scan, and ironically, I worked in the Mission Viejo as a cashier area for 18 years, and I had, like, following, like, the ladies that would come in and do their weekly shopping. So my radiologist was like a shopper at where I worked. So she knew me.
Yeah.
So she was like, "We're going to run one more. We're going to run it with some dye in it." But it was like, "You can leave here and go home, but you have to have a MRI scheduled. Like, you need to find a place to get an MRI." Like, they let me go home
Okay.
after a certain hour, but you need an MRI. And then I couldn't find anybody to give me the script for an MRI. Nobody, "Oh, that's nothing. Worry about it like a freckle." So I have to say, to worry about it like a freckle, that has been like a term that I use a lot, just to go back and say how we've evolved.
Yeah.
Because if I worried about this like a freckle, I mean, imagine. I've already had one brain surgery. I didn't even know when I had my brain surgery a few years later, I didn't even know I had the common Hispanic mutation. Had no clue.
Yeah.
It wasn't until more lesions started appearing that it's like, oh, you might have the hereditary form of this. And, you know, but it's still, to get actually tested, was pulling eye teeth too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's been quite the journey. I mean, I stayed angry for a long time, Judy. It was difficult. And then when I got diagnosed with something like the common Hispanic mutation, and who is the Spanish one in your family, that brought in even more, because my family's very proud. What do you mean there's an illness that has to
Yeah.
do with the Spanish, like,
Yeah.
and it, like, just maybe about 2 years ago, I met with my auntie, who's my great aunt, who's like 82 at the time, and she's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she gave me all the family records and everything.
Oh, wow.
But I asked for these records a long time ago,
Yeah. I know.
and there was just so much shame in it, and there was no reason to be shameful,
No, none
you
at
know?
all. Linda,
Yeah.
let's pause for a second. I want to get back to that, but let's pause for a second for listeners who are not familiar what a cavernous malformation or cavernous angioma is. And I should have asked you this before. Are you okay giving sort of a brief explanation of what it is, what a CCM is, where they're found, just kind of like a brief overview.
Yeah, so cavernous malformation are abnormally formed blood vessels. They are primarily in your brain, but they can't. I mean, sure, you hear people say they have little cherry angiomas maybe on their skin, but these in your brain, they for me, they leak, they bleed, and obviously your brain doesn't live in blood; it lives in a clear fluid.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, anything that like blood hits it, like, just like a stroke, like, you get paralysis on either side, something's left over from that. These are also lesions that can be found in your spinal cord, in your vertebral body. Of course, they're a little bit different, but the ones in your spinal cord, they can cause paralysis. They can cause, you know, um,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can lose your ability to walk. You can use your limbs,
Yeah.
to this. It's quite devastating. Most of the time, people don't even know they have the ones in the spines, because so many people aren't looking. They're not thinking that this young person has anything wrong with them who's
Right.
playing sports or something like that.
Sure. And I would imagine, although I don't know for sure, that there's maybe less symptoms if in the spine, less incidental findings, like less reason to image your spine, and also less incidental findings because unlike when the brain, depending on where it is, and if it is leaking, then there could be, as you mentioned, the stroke, seizure, depending on location, headaches, nausea, coordination issues. So I would, yeah, it makes sense that they're sort of not as easy to find. But
Mm-hmm.
going back to, so 2004 was your diagnosis. And
Mm-hmm.
then what led you to having surgery a couple of years later?
Gosh, I had surgery in 2007. So we watched this cavernoma bleed repeatedly. And
Where was it located?
in the temporal lobe.
Okay.
So on the right side. And so we watched it and we watched it grow. We watched it grow this one like 6 to 9 month period. It tripled in its size.
Wow.
Yeah. So whatever it was, I had a really stressful job at
Yeah.
at that time. And who knows, in hindsight, was it the job? Was it just it being active? Was it, who knows? But
Yeah.
nonetheless, it grew in triple in its size and was bleeding so frequently. And I called this area of my time. I had, Linda on this shoulder, but I had my evil twin Linda on the other shoulder. And it makes you furious. Just last week, I got to visit our lab here in San Diego
Uh-huh.
that tests this, tests a lot of. So obviously, the mice have CCM, and the doctor was explaining how you can tell the ones that have CCM because they're angry. And I'm like, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I totally can relate to, the migraines that are just completely out of this world.
Yeah.
So, and there's not much they can give you. Like I was given a migraine pill. It didn't work. It made it worse. And I just was not successful. I was doing, excuse me, I was doing crazy things at this point.
Huh.
Like, oh, maybe I should try 3 Tylenols and I should try like a Gatorade. Maybe I'm dehydrated, or
Yeah.
something, and that's what brought the headache on. I was trying everything, got to the point where by fluke, I had like a glass of wine and, and had 3 Tylenols, because I had a migraine, went to a dinner party, had a glass of wine. I'm like, wow, my migraine's gone. Let's start using that. Let's use a half a cup of wine so people won't think, I'm this
Yeah.
person who, but I was like, oh, this is kind of working for a little while,
And this is pre-surgery?
Pre-surgery, I did that. Yeah.
And then after surgery, was there, I mean, obviously there's a recovery period, but how are your symptoms post-surgery?
Post-surgery, I went through depression. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to relearn. You're recalling how to do all these things you already learned. I love that word recall because I learned them already. I
Yeah.
have to go back and use my brain and recall how I did that and that and that. And it was recall how to walk.
Yeah.
recall how to spell. Oh my goodness sake. Spelling was always a challenge for me anyway,
Okay.
before surgery, let alone after surgery. I remember writing an email to tell somebody I was doing okay. And I went back and looked at that. There's nothing that made sense. I can't even tell you what I was trying to write. It doesn't make sense. So I saved that just as a, this is where I was,
Yeah.
And then, I couldn't drive for about a 6-month period. And I just walked everywhere, or I had a really great friend down the street. She would come by and go, I'm going to Target today and I'm going to Trader Joe's and you're coming with me. I don't care if you don't buy anything, you're coming with me. So she would get me out of the house. But I tell you, it was just depressing, this person that, I used to be able to walk a straight line and I can't anymore.
Yeah.
I used to be able to remember, like, for instance, I used to be able to handle a lot of tasks, where now I'm lucky if you give me 3 tasks that I'll remember them. If you write them down, I can do them all.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me to remember more than 3 tasks, forget it. Or 3 phone numbers. Oh my gosh. Phone numbers were hard for me. I used to be so good at, if someone told me their phone number, and then I had a boss come up to me and say, hey, Linda, when you're taking a message for me, you're actually inverting all the numbers. Did you know that?
No. And you had no idea.
I had no idea.
Oh my.
But these are all, like, I look back at these and this was me, and it's okay, but in the moment, I was in my early 40s, and in the moment, what was my future going to be like?
Yeah.
So you're really depressed. My family at this point was not 100% on board with what this illness was. And it was very hurtful. It hurt. I still, to this day, I hurt because of it, only because my mom is now going through it. So not only do I have this disease, my mom does, but I'm the only one in the family that understands that. So that's a different thing, but, it's really hard. But I would say, like, honestly, once you get through that hurdle, obviously it's my story, it's my journey, it's my everything. But then once I made it through, back to, like, to go back to what you said in the beginning when we first met, that's when I was like, I need to make a difference.
Yeah.
And one of my children said that to me, like, why are you so focused on your family? That, like, not my immediate family, not my children, not my husband, but why are you focused on your mom and your sisters and stuff? And if they don't understand, how about finding the people who do? And that goes back to my story of why I started Malibu Walk,
Yeah.
because, the Alliance to Cure was Angioma Alliance back then. But Connie, the CEO, she just said, hey, we're looking for people who will walk anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm here in Malibu. So that's what started that whole thing. And thank God, like, I met you there and so many other people.
Yeah, I just wanted, for listeners who aren't familiar, with the Alliance, I am going to ask you about the Alliance a little later on. But I think that people like you, and obviously like me, that's why I reached out to get in walk as well, is that there is this feeling, once you're sort of in a stable place. I mean, that's sort of all relative, because when you have this disease, nothing is stable. But just for listeners who don't know about it, it is a rare brain disease, and there is no cure for it. And so the only treatment is surgery. And so that's why you had surgery for that leaky one. And that's why my son had surgery. And unfortunately, it's not a cure. In my son's case, it grew back and he had to have a second surgery. And thankfully it hasn't grown back now in 8 years. But Yeah. So, but, and so there's that. I love that your family motivated you to seek out others outside of your extended family, because that's what motivated me too. As I felt like, okay, we were in as stable of a place as we could be, and even though he didn't have an active lesion or any lesion, I knew that it could grow back because there wasn't a cure, and I wanted to not only get involved with connecting with others, but sort of being prepared should it grow back or another one pop up. Because at that point, I didn't know. And for those listening, there are sort of two general forms. There's a sporadic form, and then there's the familial form. So the sporadic is just one, and then familial has multiple, which is what you have, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about next, which is when did you figure out that you had more than one, and that because you had more than one, it probably was one of the genetic forms of the disease?
Yeah, I found out in 2009
Okay.
that it was the familial. So 2 years after my brain surgery, because after my brain surgery, I was still in recovery mode, and I was told to get busy living, which I did, and I just resumed my life, and that was not so. Like they say I had a mild stroke, and they found another lesion, and this time it would be in my brainstem. So it took me 2 years from that diagnosis to finally say, from my brain surgery to finally get my insurance to cover, cover the cost of finding out. They say that to find out that you have the hereditary form of this illness is like, imagine a 3 million word novel and you're finding the one misspelling in it.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so once they find it, they go straight first to the most common, which is the common Hispanic. Then they go and test for the other ones, but they found it right away.
Yep.
And I then alerted my family, like with this piece of paper that says, if you are, related to me by blood, you should be tested as well.
Right.
And
Because you have a 50-50 chance
because you have
having it.
50-50. Yeah. Like it's like a flip of a coin.
Yeah.
And there, as we know, we've all flipped coins. You could flip heads 3 times. You can hit tails 3 times, and that's how it is. Even when you have children, my mom had 3 children. I'm the only one who has this so far. My oldest sister was tested; she's negative. My youngest sister, she doesn't want to be tested, and that's her prerogative.
Yeah.
So yeah. Does she have any? Does she appear to have any symptoms of this? Who knows? I'm not inside, and sometimes it's just too much to bear for somebody that they could have this, because this disease can look like so many different things.
It can.
Yeah, it can look like, yes, I'm functioning and whatnot, and I don't appear to have anything wrong, but you don't know like what's going on inside of anybody, right? So we don't know. I'm not inside Eli. I can't even imagine, what it's like to live inside of him. And so I've seen all different kinds of people who have this illness, especially working for the Alliance, in all different stages.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. It presents so differently because it's the brain. I always say the brain is the biggest, most glorious organ, and also the most mysterious, because having this disease can vary drastically depending on the location, and so many other factors. I want to, before we talk about the lens, because I'm dying to talk about it, but so the one that popped up in your brainstem a couple years later, that one you're just on a watch. How does that? You're on a watch and wait.
Yeah. So I have this saved message from UCLA, where my brain surgeon was before he retired. And the message says that, we're going to worry about this when it gets to be over a centimeter.
Okay.
And if it starts to bleed.
Mm-hmm.
So it stayed under a centimeter for some time. And then when it got to be over a centimeter and it bled, and then it bled again. And that's when it's like, w- you know, I know when I'm in a bleed now, I'm pretty positive,
Yeah.
but it's not fun. Yeah. And so, my surgeon retired from UCLA. And so now I'm, because of the alliance, I got involved in a study drug, which took me then now to Dr. Steinberg and where Eli goes to.
Yeah.
And yeah. And ironically, like, it's just so comforting to hear him say, no, you are doing so good. Like, let's see what this trial drug can do for you. You're doing so good for somebody who's had 2 bleeds, and I wouldn't touch that. The brainstem is such an eloquent spot in the brain that
Yes.
you're not going to leave a brain surgery without some sort of deficit from that. So for me and what my capabilities are, I have, I'm not in a hurry to do brain surgery there.
No,
Yeah.
especially if someone who's such an expert like Dr. Steinberg is not recommending it. I'll listen to anything he says, but no, he's he's one, I always say he is the top cerebrovascular neurosurgeon, certainly in the West and in the world as well. I mean, so
Yeah.
if he's comfortable leaving it, then you got to trust him because he knows. He's so passionate about it too. Okay, so what protocol are you on? Are you on an annual imaging or?
Which I'm due. I'm due for that. It's been a year since my last lesion. My last MRI showed my lesion is stable. Well, they're never stable, right? They're lesions.
Yeah.
It is not growing. It's not growing. It actually is under a centimeter now.
Amazing. That's great.
So, I have to give kudos to what the drug study did during that time. I'm eager to find out if, in the past year since I haven't been on the drug, if where I'm at. But we'll see. We'll see what that says. I'm hopeful that there's been no growth. I'm hopeful that there's been no bleed. That is the most thing. Like, the bleeding is the most damaging. So
yeah, and I think that's a pretty universal feeling, and certainly from adults who can explain how it feels and what the impact is, from impact on the brain and spine if that's where it is bleeding. Okay, let's talk about the Alliance. That's the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation. Oh, look at that smile. That's what brought us together. And before I ask you about it, I do just want to say that, first of all, hopefully Connie will come on and talk about it because I'd love for her to tell her story about, Connie's the CEO of the Alliance. I'd love for her to talk about how it all started. Because she single-handedly started the organization, and it's what it does today is so amazing. For me, my initial draw to it was like you, using Google to figure out what was going on. And obviously, if you do a Google search, thankfully you come to the Alliance website. Then it was called Angioma Alliance. But for me, as a newly diagnosed parent, or parent of a newly diagnosed child that that section of like what medical team to get to and what questions to ask was so crucial in navigating what to do, because there isn't, first of all, even thankfully now there's even more information in the last 10 years among the experts who are treating these, but just to who to talk to, who, and there's isn't necessarily a consensus. Some doctors would say, or some neurosurgeons would say, oh, you should watch and wait and reimage in 3 months. And some would say, oh no, you should take this out immediately. And so there isn't a consensus. So to be able to have those questions as a starting point, that was so helpful for me. And then the Facebook group, just connecting other parents and patients. And some parents are both patient and parent if they have the genetic form of the disease. So, but just to be able to connect, and that brought me to you, and you you made the transition, not transition, you're still a patient, but you transitioned from being a parent to an advocate. And you now work for the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation. And I wanted to ask you, how did you make that decision that it was, because you've been volunteering for a long time, both you and your amazing husband, Eric, who I adore, had been volunteering in the walks and in various events over the years. What was that transition like for you to sort of now professionally represent the Alliance?
Oh my gosh. I remember just seeing, it was just after COVID. And I remember seeing this email, and then all over the Facebook, they were looking for somebody. And, and I thought about it and I thought about it. And at the time I was working for Restoration Hardware. And I was like, could I do this? What does this even look like? And so I remember calling Lindsay and go, I keep on getting this, and I'm just wondering if this is on my heart because I should go for it. Like, what are you guys looking for? And she goes, basically what you do every time you do a walk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in it, so.
It was a natural progression for you.
Yeah, it was just boom, let's walk away from that job, full on into this job. One of the things that I'm very, very, very passionate about with working with the Alliance is the New Mexico, because in New Mexico, you guys, it's just such a prevalent disease because of a founding mutation. And so I was called there by Dr. Morrison so many years ago as soon as I got, the diagnosis of having the hereditary form, I went on our patient registry and I said, this is what I have. And, through that, Dr. Morrison was looking for people who had the common Hispanic mutation that would just be a part of research because they're just wanting to learn everything that they can, right? And so I went to New Mexico. I brought my mom with me, who in New Mexico in 2012, that's where she received her diagnosis. Like, we already knew it.
Yeah.
But that's where she received her diagnosis. And then, it was just all research at that point. And then when I got the job, I was just, so let's go to New Mexico again. Let's go to New Mexico. So that is where I'll be next week for their conference. But, so much too, because it's so prevalent there that you can have like a walk there and so many people show up who are patients.
Yeah. From what I understand, like the common Hispanic mutation dates back to like the 1600s. Is that right? It's incredible that the research or the genealogy piece of it can go back. Genetics and genealogy goes back that far. And so I guess it makes sense that there would be that many people who.
Yeah, especially when you're flipping that coin. Yes or no, yes or no. Every child that's born. Yes or no, yes or no. To tell everybody, I have 3 children. And through my efforts with New Mexico, my oldest daughter, she was the last one to test because my younger one did and my middle one did right when they turned 18. And she was like, nah, I don't want to test. Like, I know if they came up negative, I've got to be the one that's positive because it's, I know there's no way you could have had 3 kids. Well, I did. I had 3 kids and none of them have this disease. So that's not the case for everybody. So I hate to say goody for me, but I mean, obviously, like, let me focus on being everybody else's voice and my own voice and my voice for my mom. And I'm glad I don't have to worry about my kids too, because that would bring a whole nother worry and talk about stress and these lesions.
Yeah.
I can just imagine.
Yeah. I'll never forget when you told me that, about your last daughter being tested and that she was negative for it. I remember personally thinking, I'm happy for her, obviously, but I was so happy for you because I know as a mother, there's so many stresses that we have that I don't know how you could have handled that guilt even though you were completely, there's nothing that you could have done or done differently, it, there's just flipping that coin, like you said. And thankfully your girls got lucky. But yeah, I was so happy for them, but for you too, because I just didn't want you to live with that guilt of knowing that you had unknowingly passed along this disease to them. So
yeah. And I think I would have, you're a mother, so I think I would have been like, well, did you see the latest of this? Did you catch how we should be changing our diet to less emulsifiers? Did you, and so I don't need to micromanage, right?
Yes.
It's like that was, even though she's 39, almost 40, but I mean, this was a couple of years ago when she finally decided, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that done. And yeah, it was a turning point. I remember just sitting there crying, and it was over the phone, and Eric was in the room, and he's like, what the heck just happened? And so I put her on speakerphone, and he's like, and he started crying, and she didn't understand that at all. She didn't understand the why are you guys crying though? But I mean, as any parent, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so thankful that it turned out that way. Yeah. It's just, all right. One more question about the Alliance before I have another follow-up. If someone wanted to get involved, if someone is, a lot of people aren't symptomatic. They do have incidental findings like you did. Like if there's a car accident or some sort of head injury from sports, they do find out that, they have these lesions in their brain or maybe even in their spine. What would be your best advice in terms of getting involved in the Alliance for? I mean, I mentioned the newly diagnosis page, but what other things would you recommend? Someone who has a diagnosis, how could they get involved?
Gosh, with us, it's so easy. Like we have weekly support groups.
Yes.
So we have a once a month 101 class. Like if you don't understand your disease, join our 101 class because you're going to learn it from Darla, who is not only a patient, but she's a mom of 2, who has the disease too. So just join the 101 class. And if you don't understand it, join it the following month until you learn this disease, because honestly, there's not a lot of doctors who are 100% in the know about this disease at all. And we do have our centers of excellence. Last week, I went to 3 of the centers of excellence.
Wow.
I took a California tour. And, it was really interesting because, I can pretty much say I'm an LA girl, like Orange County.
You are.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can say that UCLA is seeing 5 to 10 patients who have this a week more than
Wow.
a week.
Because of the Center of Excellence.
Yeah, a week. So he's not sure if it's Center of Excellence or just you know how a lot of places are uh like closing up and whatnot, or maybe the word's getting out that hey, he's a center,
Yeah.
let's go see him. But he's seen more patients with this
Okay.
than he has in the past.
You're talking
And
about
so
Dr. Wang.
Doctor, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great. I mean,
yeah.
not great that people are needing to be seen by the medical community, but I'm so glad that UCLA is a resource. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, as someone who's been inpatient there before, yeah, I'm so glad that again, I hate the volume number, but I'm glad that they have
Yeah.
a chance to see those patients. Yeah, so that's great. Um,
Yesterday at the golf tournament, I
yeah.
got to tell you. So actually, let me backtrack. So when I visited all three of the centers, I had Steinberg at Stanford. Then I went to UCSD
uh,
and met Steinberg
yeah.
Jr.,
Yeah.
the son,
Son. Yeah.
and I just, I know, the gentleman that was the host of the golf tournament that we did yesterday out in San Diego County, but he came. It was his 5-year brain anniversary, and he came and he surprised the patient, and it was, there's this community of the team of doctors that's learning more and more. I just think that, you know, to hear them all like refer back to what the lab is doing in San Diego, you know, it's
Yeah.
that too. I mean, I know we're on that cutting edge of a cure that looks something other than brain surgery.
Yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to mention too. If you can just briefly talk about, I forgot about this before, but um, one other thing that the Alliance does is fund research for a cure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's,
Yeah.
in addition to being this amazing patient support organization, can you talk a little bit? You don't have, I know there's a lot of different research projects, but can you give kind of like a general overview of what's being done in San Diego, what's being done, and how the Alliance supports other research activities for a cure?
Yeah, well, in San Diego, Dr. Miguel Lopez, he's been to a few of our walks.
Yeah, I met him.
Yeah,
He's great.
he is the person behind, I've been to his lab twice now. He's been behind like giving zebrafish even CCM.
Mm,
Yeah, it's so
wow.
creative. Like I hear, and you see the zebrafish, and
Yeah.
you can see their lesions inside,
Wow.
them and whatnot. And yeah, just last week I got to see the mice colony that were bred for this disease and seen what that's like. And I know how some people will be like, "Oh, why does it have to?" But then I look at my disease and go, because they need to find a cure, because there is no cure just yet. So I know it is what it is. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what has to happen. And so,
Can you talk?
right.
I was going to say, just also touch on the drug, like on the drug research as well.
Yeah. So we did our first, drug study, which I got to be a part of. And, it was, the REC 994, which I was on the drug the whole time, the whole 2 years, and I gotta say, if that drug was available on the shelf at Target, I'd go buy it,
Yeah.
and I would take it because I know what it did for me,
Yeah. Well, your
and
lesion is under a centimeter, right? So,
yeah,
I mean,
so I know how I felt.
yeah.
I saw the change. I started being able to remember phone numbers, the whole thing, versus like cognitively, it really changed, and that's a big deal to somebody
Oh,
living with this disease. Yeah,
yeah, that's huge. Yeah,
yeah.
uh, that's amazing. Okay.
And so, Yeah, so the Rec 994, we've done that. We're working on focus ultrasound. So that has gone all the way to the FDA, and we are looking at that maybe in the next. I would say, I think maybe next spring we'll be more ready for focused ultrasound than we are right now. Um, and then, which is a non-invasive way of treating this, right? So there's just a little bit more, things to button up for that. And I mean, we're looking at like just doing more with, okay, Rec 994, it worked, right?
Sure.
I can say this because this is gone. Connie signed over all the rights to look at the recursion, the people who are on the recursion, and have our team of doctors start looking at with the patients that were on it. They don't know, like they'll just see numbers, but
Yeah.
the patients that were on it and on the real, like our experts, like having the people that have been so involved versus like, say, for instance, I was seen at Stanford. So that Stanford radiologist is reading this. So they want to like have the doctors that were used to seeing cavernomas, like Dr. Blaine Hart in New Mexico. He read cavernoma MRIs all day long.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're going. All of the efforts, I mean, these are all things going around in Connie's mind and our experts.
Yeah.
So I tell you, where would any of us be without this woman who sat in 2002 at her kitchen table and said, my daughter has this and I'm going to find a cure.
Yeah. That's, yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And that's why I said earlier why I wanted to have her come on. So,
you know, one of the things that I was thinking about one time when I heard Connie speaking at one of the walks is after she walked away, I thought, you know what? As a person who has this disease, how many times I struggled trying to convince a doctor of this, that, or the other thing, right? And Connie, she didn't let that discourage her. She just kept on.
no, she's laser focused.
Yeah.
And she's on a mission, and what started out as just helping her daughter has now impacted thousands. I mean, yeah, I can't, and tens of thousands of people. Yeah, it's quite incredible. My last question for you is, as someone who's living with CCM, if you could give advice to someone who maybe received a CCM diagnosis, but more broadly, any rare disease diagnosis, what would you want to say to them now that you've had, you're in hindsight, so anyone that's had a recent diagnosis, whether it's CCM or some other rare thing, what would be a piece of advice you have for them?
Gosh, I honestly, like, I know doctors hate us going home and Googling it. They do. They really do. But I would go home and just start learning all you can.
Yeah.
You have to like you have to learn everything that you can possibly learn about your diagnosis and the proactive ways to address it. I mean, it's not easy, you know? It really is not an easy thing to go, okay, now I have to go to the doctors and address this. A lot of people would be like, oh, I don't want to hear any more bad news.
Yeah.
Right. But being proactive, I mean, for me, if I worried about it like a freckle, like, come on, like, think about that. Like, think about, you know, if I worried about it like a freckle, like I had to make the decision. Was that the right call? No, I could not. Yeah, he's more than welcome to say that, but am I going to believe that? Like, you're not in my skin. You don't know how I feel.
Yeah. And
Like that little evil twin's going, like wreaking havoc in my brain and making me this mean-spirited person. It's like making me be the bad rat that wants to attack and bite. And, no, I have to deal with what the reality says. Like, what is the reality in all of this?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. Nobody wants to, nobody says, oh yeah, give me the rare disease. I'll take that one. But now that I look at it, honestly, Judy, I say, why not me? Like I was made to be the voice. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know. And I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for, you really inspired me in those early days. Every time I had a conversation with you and I'm like, wow, I want to get to that. And even though I'm not the patient, I'm the patient's mom. I want to get to that place where I can, speak, I can speak about what it is and what to do and what not to do and how to handle it. You were in a good place. Even with everything you were dealing with, you were in such a good place and you really inspired me. I love listening to you talk. I love, I hate that this is what we talk about, but you have such great perspective and your wealth of knowledge and I just I'm so honored that you came and told your story, especially after you had an amazing fundraising day yesterday, and I kept asking you, sure you want to come on? But thank you for carving out the time.
It made me sit down because I have 2 cars to unload all the stuff. So,
okay, well, I'm glad I'm glad I offered you the opportunity to pause. But no, thank you for coming on and sharing your story, talking about the Alliance, talking about rare disease, and I'm really appreciative of everything that you shared with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Judy. I love your family. I love every one of you guys. I just have watched them grow over. Is it really been 10 years?
Yeah, it's 10 years.
Yeah.
I know.
I love watching your family grow. So, yeah.
Thank you. We love you guys, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you again. Okay.
Take care.
All right. 2. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Curveballs and Lemonade. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss a news story. New episodes drop every Thursday. Follow us on Instagram at Curveballs and Lemonade and on Facebook. For audio listeners, make sure to check out full video episodes on YouTube at Curveballs and Lemonade. Engineered by Robert Altschuler, Curveballs and Lemonade is produced by Command Creative Studios.